And soon he found himself bringing his extramarital affairs to his matrimonial home. At first, Bola was careful, ensuring that Nana was out of the house before inviting his side chicks over. But eventually, his reckless behavior caught up with him. Nana was an orphan. She had been found on the doorstep of the village's healer as a newborn, wrapped in a soft blanket and left with a note that simply said, Nana. The healer had taken her in and raised her as her own. The healer, a widowed woman who never had a child, was happy that heaven had smiled at her. Nana had never known her real parents or where she had come from, but she never felt like she was missing anything. She was loved and cared for by her mother and the villagers. Nana, with her bright eyes and infectious laugh, wasn't looking for a husband. She was focused on pursuing her passion for baking and sharing her delicious creations at the local farmers market. Every Saturday, she would set up her stall, the air filled with the aroma of warm bread and buttery cookies. One day, a gentleman named Bola stopped by, won by the sweet scent and the vibrant display. He was captivated not just by Nana's pastries, but by the warmth in her smile as she explained the story behind each treat. They fell into an easy conversation, discussing their love for fresh ingredients and sharing stories about their lives. As weeks turned into months, their Saturday morning encounters became a cherished routine. They would discuss baking techniques, life aspirations, and everything in between. One rainy Saturday, as Nana was packing up for the day, Bola surprised her with an umbrella, holding it over her stall. As they walked home together, sheltered from the downpour, they realized their connection had blossomed into something deeper. It wasn't a grand gesture or a sudden spark, but a gradual understanding, a shared respect, and a comfortable companionship. Their love story wasn't defined by a specific moment, but by the countless moments they built together. It was in the shared laughter over burnt cookies, the quiet companionship during a difficult time, and the unwavering support in chasing their individual dreams. Eventually, Bola, with a nervous smile and a bowl of Nana's favorite bakery, asked her to marry him. Nana, her eyes shining with tears of joy, readily agreed. Their journey to love wasn't about finding someone to complete them, but about finding someone who appreciated them for who they were, supporting their passions and walking alongside them on life's path. Nana and Bola's union was blessed with two children. Bola's friends, envious of his seemingly perfect marriage, began to plant seeds of doubt in his mind. They whispered tales of living life for oneself and being in charge as the head of the house, instead of allowing his wife control him. They constantly reminded him how his wife controls him and how he is a weakling. Bola, initially resistant to their influence, found himself gradually won to their persuasive arguments. Doubt crept into his heart, and he began to question whether his selfless devotion to Nana was truly the best path for him. Slowly but surely, Bola's behavior began to change. He started staying out late with his friends, neglecting his responsibilities at home. Gone were the days of thoughtful gestures and loving words. Instead, Bola became distant and indifferent towards Nana, taking her for granted without a second thought. He no longer saw her as his equal partner, but rather as an inconvenience standing in the way of his newfound pursuit of personal gratification. Bola stopped working to provide for the family. He left all responsibilities to Nana. Nana worked tirelessly to make their home a warm and loving place, but Bola never seemed to notice or care. Despite him not providing for the family, Nana cooked delicious meals, cleaned the house, and took care of their children, but Bola never thanked her or showed any gratitude. Nana, bewildered and hurt by her husband's transformation, tried desperately to reach out to him, to understand what had caused the sudden shift in his behavior. But her attempts were met with dismissiveness and coldness. As time passed, Bola's selfishness only grew, and Nana found herself trapped in a loveless marriage, longing for the husband she once knew. One day, Nana reached her breaking point. She had given her husband everything she had, and he had never shown her any love or appreciation in return. She decided that she had had enough. She packed her bags and left the house. Without Nana, Bola's life fell apart. He could not take care of the children and he struggled to feed himself and the kids. The house was a mess and the children were unhappy and unkept. He began to realize just how much Nana had done for the family and how little he had done to show his appreciation. Bola couldn't wait for the next day to go beg his wife to return back home. The next morning, Bola and his relatives went to the healer's house to plead for Nana to come back home. Nana's mother began to worry about her daughter's well-being. She knew that Nana was unhappy and that Bola was ungrateful, but she also knew that her grandchildren needed their mother. She urged Nana to go home for the sake of her children. Nana was conflicted. She loved her children, but she did not want to go back to a life of being unappreciated and undervalued. After much deliberation, Nana decided to listen to her mother's advice. She knew that her children needed her, and she could not bear the thought of leaving them. She finally returned home. As time went on, Bola's friends began to see changes in him, from how poorly he treated his wife before to a loving and hardworking man. They started to reinforce him again, telling him that his wife should be grateful to be married to a man like him. And they made him feel like his wife was in the wrong for wanting more from their marriage. Bola went back to his old habits. He continued his nonchalant attitude towards his wife. He would nag on every minor issues and refuse to help around the house or take care of their children. Nana became frustrated and began to wonder if she had made a mistake by returning back home. Bola started seeking excitement outside his marriage. He began seeing other women behind Nana's back. As his infidelity escalated, Nana lost her self-esteem. She started seeing herself as not good enough. She became bitter. Bola couldn't resist the thrill of the forbidden, and soon he found himself bringing his extramarital affairs to his matrimonial home. At first, Bola was careful, ensuring that Nana was out of the house before inviting his side chicks over. But eventually, his reckless behavior caught up with him. One day, Nana returned home earlier than expected to find Bola entertaining another woman in their matrimonial bed. Shock and betrayal flooded her senses as she realized the extent of her husband's deceit. Heartbroken and furious, she confronted Bola, but he held her on her neck and warned her seriously not to ever question him and how he decides to live his life. In the quiet stillness of the evening, Nana sat huddled in the corner of her room, tears streaming down her cheeks like silent rivers of sorrow. Her husband's harsh words echoed in her mind, each one a painful dagger that pierced her heart. Feeling broken and alone, she wrapped her arms around herself, seeking solace in the darkness. The weight of her husband's abuse pressed down on her, suffocating her spirit and leaving her feeling helpless and trapped. As she sat there, lost in her despair, a gentle knock sounded at the door. Startled, Nana glanced up, her eyes red and swollen from crying. With a trembling hand, she wiped away her tears and rose to her feet. Opening the door, she was met with the warm embrace of her friend, Emily. Concern carved across her eyes. Emily reached out and pulled Nana to herself, holding her tightly as if to shield her from the pain. Wordlessly, Nana buried her face in Emily's shoulder, allowing herself to finally release the pent-up emotions that had been consuming her. In the safety of her friend's embrace, she found the courage to speak, to share the torments she had been enduring behind closed doors. With compassion and empathy, Emily listened, her heart breaking with each painful revelation. And as the night wore on, she vowed to stand by Nana's side, offering her full support and friendship in her darkest hour. Emily was Nana's best friend, and she was deeply concerned about her friend's situation. She knew that Bola was treating Nana unfairly, and she was frustrated by his behavior. Emily decided to take matters into her own hands. She confronted Bola and told him that he was being unreasonable and unfair. She told him that he needed to change his ways or risk losing Nana forever. When Emily left, Bola was furious. He could not believe that Nana had confided in her friend about their marriage and he wanted to punish her. When Nana got home that night, Bola was waiting for her. He was angry and aggressive and he began to yell and shout at her. Before she knew it, he had grabbed her and started to hit her. She was terrified and in pain, and she knew that she had to get out of there. She ran out of the house and started running down the street. Nana decided to spend the night in her friend's house, so to go back to her mother the next morning. Nana finally gathered the courage to leave Bola for good. She knew that it was the right thing to do. As she made her way back to her mother's house, her heart raced with uncertainty. Would she find solace in the familiar surroundings, or would her past continue to haunt her? Upon reaching the village, she was greeted by whispers of her return. News spread like wildfire, reaching the ears of the three noblemen who had been searching for the lost princess of their kingdom. And finally in her mother's house, the healer, telling her the story of how the princess ended up in her doorstep years ago. According to them, a certain woman approached the throne and revealed a secret that shook the kingdom to its core. She carried the blood of the king. King Achebe's heart thundered in his chest as Akunne recounted the tale of their secret romance, hidden away from the prying eyes of courtiers and nobles. He had never known of his daughter's existence, and now the weight of his ignorance pressed upon him like a mountain. King Achebe was married to Abigail, the princess of the neighboring kingdom. Abigail was mean and heartless, and feared by everyone in the kingdom. She could not bear King Achebe a child due to an untreatable health issue. King Achebe tried getting another wife to bear him a child who would succeed the throne after he had gone, but Queen Abigail bluntly refused. Unfortunately, Queen Abigail passed after an illness, despite all efforts to save her. Determined to right the wrongs of the past, King Achebe summoned his most trusted elders and charged them with a solemn request to find his daughter and bring her home. Nana's real mother, Kunne, had gotten married to another man. She had gone far from the kingdom after she got pregnant of Nana, so to hide the pregnancy from her people and the village. She dropped Nana at the doorstep of the village henna, knowing she had no child and would take care of her. She hid the child because she knew Queen Abigail would kill her and her child should she find out she was pregnant for the king. Nana was startled by the unexpected visitors she met in their house. However, their gentle demeanor and kind words put her at ease. They spoke of her true identity, of a royal lineage, and of a kingdom that awaited her return. Though hesitant at first, Nana felt a glimmer of hope stir within her. With the support of these newfound allies, she found the strength to confront her past and embrace her destiny. Nana reclaimed her sense of self-worth and discovered the power within her. And as they crossed the threshold of the kingdom, she stood tall and proud, ready to embrace the future that awaited her as the rightful heir to the throne. With tears of joy streaming down his withered cheeks, King Achebe embraced his daughter for the first time, and the news of their reunion resonating throughout the kingdom, a sense of completeness washed over them. Nana, escorted by palace guards, returned to Bola's house to get her children. Bola pleaded for forgiveness, promising to change his ways and salvage their marriage. But the damage was done. Nana could no longer trust the man she once loved. In the end, Bola's selfish actions cost him the most precious thing in his life, his marriage and children. As he watched Nana walk away, tears streaming down his face, he realized too late the irreversible consequences of his betrayal. Bola's friends began to distance themselves from him. They did not want to risk their own marriage, so they stopped inviting him to their events. As Bola's friends abandoned him, he began to feel alone and isolated. He was alone and miserable, and he could not see a way out. Bola lived with the painful lesson he had learned.